The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Okay.
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. This is Comfortably Zoned Radio, and you're listening to When Bums and Jints Walk the Streets of New York. I'm your host, Peter Trunk, and my co-host is Ron Rabinovitz. Ron, how are you?
Good. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing fairly well. Our weather broke a little bit. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but it's getting there. It's,
yeah, mine
50s
too.
and 60s, whatever. Hopefully, spring is going to spring, but it doesn't. I don't hold too much hope. I think what we do here usually in the last few years, we go from winter right into summer.
Yeah,
that's the way it always happens.
Yeah, that's right.
That voice you heard, ladies and gentlemen, is our guest tonight. Our guest tonight is a person who has been on the show a couple of times before. His name is Murray Trachtenberg. He was the general manager of the Carnegie Deli in New York City for 35 years, and we welcome him back as a guest again. Murray, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. So far, so good,
So far, so good. Okay.
So far, so
I love
good.
it when you said that. That's good.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, Murray Trachtenberg brought his lovely wife, Renee, on the show with him, and I think we're going to hear a little bit from her, too, later in the show.
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay, that's cool. Very good.
Great.
Now, we all know from past shows that Murray was a New York Giants fan.
Grew up as a Giant fan, sure.
Grew up as a Giants fan, went to the Polo Grounds many times, and he also, as stated before, he ran the Carnegie Deli in New York City for 35 years, and he had some phenomenal stories about the Carnegie Deli. And we got thinking on the show, and we figured that Murray, being over 39 years old, had some wonderful, wonderful stories to share with our audience. And I'd like to ask him, if I may, Murray, can you take us back? Can you take us back before you became involved with the Carnegie Deli, when you were a younger man, and perhaps in your days in the service, and how you came to meet Renee, your wife?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I right out of high school, I went to James Madison High School in Brooklyn, and I graduated. I was only 16 and a half when I graduated, to tell you the truth. And I don't know. I had two older brothers, and we were all Navy guys. Okay, and I followed my both brothers, and I went into the service, even though I was too young to go in. You had to be at least 17. But I wanted to go so bad, I falsified my records, okay? And, my mother didn't want me to go, but my father said, let him go. And finally we got inducted in Whitehall Street in New York, and that's where everybody went in. And
what
then
year
I went
this?
to, this was 1953.
Okay.
And I went to my boot camp. At that time, boot camp was 16 weeks. It was in a place called Bainbridge, Maryland. That was about 30 miles north of Baltimore. It was a big, tremendous base there. We had like 180,000 men there. Okay, and like I said, boot camp was very strict at that time. It wasn't like today. You didn't go to have liberty on the weekends. That was it. You were there for the duration.
Okay.
And it was pretty tough. I mean, when I first got in, as a matter of fact, what they have what they call an incoming unit, where the new guys come in, the recruits come in. And I remember I got into the building there, and I was sitting down with my back up against a stanchion, and I was just sitting there and just minding my own business, whatever. And this lieutenant came by and walked right past me, And I didn't know who he was. I mean, I was in the service. What do I know? and I didn't salute, okay? So he stopped and he came back and he looked at me and he says, don't you know enough to salute an officer when you see one? I said, are you an officer? He says, how long have you been in the Navy? I said, I've been in all day. I says, this one gets the first haircut. You know, in boot camp in those days, you got a haircut every week. And you had to shave from your cheekbones to your neck whether you needed it or not. That's how it was. It was very difficult. I was quite heavy at the time. I was like 245 pounds. And they wouldn't let me eat. They didn't want me to eat because they have to give you all your uniforms, and this runs into a lot of money. They give you a lot of uniforms. So if they gave me the uniforms at the time I got in, by the time I got through boot camp 4 months later, they would have to reissue me all my stuff.
Yeah.
In a way, it was great because when everybody had a stand inspection, all I had a stand inspection was my skivvies, you know, that's underwears and stuff. All I had was dungarees, jeans now they called. We called it dungarees. Okay,
right.
That's all I had. I had an empty locker, and I kept on losing weight. When I went in, like I said, at 245. When I came out, I was 155 pounds.
Wow.
I lost 90 pounds. Yeah, I lost 90 pounds in boot camp.
90 pounds.
I lost 90 pounds in boot camp, and it was pretty tough at the time. I mean, in those days, you opened up your mouth, they slugged you, they hit you, and you didn't talk back. That's how it was. I remember that we had our company commander was a chief bosun's mate, and he had 28 years in the service, and his stripes were all gold, meaning that the guy was unbelievable. And I remember one day he was annoyed with me, so he kicked me down a flight of stairs.
Wow.
And I looked up at him and I said, you know something? You can't hurt me. I'm from New York. He never bothered me after that. He never bothered me. But that's how it was. You know, you got up at 4:30 in the morning and you went out onto the grinder. That's where we did the marching. And you had to line up to go to the mess hall, which was at the other end of the grinder. The last guy out of the mess hall, we had like 360 guys in the company, but the last one out had to carry a bucket of rocks to chow. That was a punishment. That's how it was, and you had to carry your rifle. We carried Springfield rifles at the time because you didn't have an M1 at the time. The M1 came in later with the Marines. So this is how it was, and the food was pretty good. I can't complain about that, except the first meal I ever had in the Navy was what they call SOS. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
We all know what that is.
We call, excuse me, shit on a shingle. Okay? And I took a look at that. I said, I'm not eating that. I'm not eating. You know, I lived on a half a pint of milk and dry cereal. That's how it was. And you had to keep your mouth shut, and you had to obey. You didn't talk back. You know, and in the Navy has the best schools in the service, bar none. Every school that you go to in the Navy is recognized by every college and university in the country. So if you make good grades in your field, and if you decide to go on to college, they give you the credit for that. And in the Navy, every week they give you what they call a GCT test, which is a general classification test, to see what you're suited for. And every week you got it. And every week you got it. And I was suited for pretty good. I took the test in the 15th week in service. I went in and I said, well, Murray, and I said to me, well, Murray, what do you want to do? What kind of job rating do you want to have? I says, well, I born in the Navy, I'd like to go aboard ship, be a gun is made or something. He says, Murray, you got good grades in medical. You have an aptitude for medicine, and you can become a hospital corpsman. I said, what is a hospital corpsman? I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And a hospital corpsman in the Navy is not like an Army medic, because an Army medic just learns first aid. We had to learn everything, materia medica and pharmacology and toxicology and physics and chemistry. We used to make our own medicine even. So that's what I went through. We went to school for 9 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 months. And then I got out. As a matter of fact, I came out with a 95 average, so I got an automatic stripe, and I became a third-class petty officer right out of boot camp. just about.
Wow.
So at my first duty station was, at that time there was a Navy hospital in Jamaica, Queens, called St. Albans Naval Hospital. It was a very big naval hospital there. And I really didn't like that duty that I had. They had me on surgery wards and all that kind of that. And I remember I came in late to work one day. I was 10 minutes late to work, just 10 minutes. And the nurse wrote me up, and I got a summary court-martial for being 10 minutes late to work. They gave me 30 days in a brig. And, you know, when I got out, I came back to the hospital, and the captain, I remember Captain Cantrell, I went into the office. I said, Captain, I said, do me a favor. I says, I can't work with these nurses. Get me out of here. The next morning, I had orders to the 1st Marine Division, because Marines are a branch of the Navy. They don't have their own medical personnel. Okay. And I got shipped right out to Camp Pendleton out in California. I took a special course in field medicine. You know, that's like on battlefield. You know, and then after that 6 weeks, they shipped me over to Korea, and that's what it was. And then finally, I finally got out. They wanted me to ship over.
Let me interrupt you if I may, please.
Go ahead.
If people ask you today, like let's say you're at a barbecue or you're at a party or something like that, and people ask you today, it comes up in conversation that you were in the service, do you tell them you were in the Navy or do you tell them you were a Marine?
I told them I joined the Navy, but I was attached to the Marines. I was in the 1st Marine Division, 5th Marines, 7th Motor Transport Battalion. And the 5th Marines, the outfit that I was in, that's the most decorated outfit in the entire Marine Corps. That outfit is the one that made the first land assault in the Second World War at Guadalcanal. And it was unbelievable. And I had good duty with the Marines. I can't complain. I mean, I had wonderful. I didn't even have to sleep in the barracks. I slept in the dispensary. I used to get up in the morning. The mess sergeant used to call me up. Doc, what do you have for breakfast? I used to have steak and eggs, whatever. You know, we did good stuff. You know, I have great memories. I'm not sorry I was in. I'm proud that I was in. You know, like I said, we have a long legacy. My oldest brother was in the Second World War, and he was on the Hornet when they made the Doolittle raid on Tokyo in 1942. He was an aviation machinist.
Really?
Right. He went in, you know, in the beginning of the war in 1941. And then my middle brother he went in 1950, and he served 17 months in Korea. Won the Silver Star, but never wanted to talk about it. So we have a history with the Navy. You know, I still have my Navy pants at home. They can't get into them. It's a 29 waist, but that's how it is. You know, it's a long time ago. But you never forget. You never forget yourself in the service. And I'm very proud that I was in. And it bothers me today with these morons there with not giving respect to guys that are giving their service or laying their life on the line. We were proud to go in. That's how it was. It was a different world in those days.
Yes, when you were in the service. How long were you in the service? How many years?
Active duty?
Yeah.
4 years.
4 years.
4 years active duty. And then I didn't get a discharge, but when I went in, you had to remember it was an 8-year obligation. So after you served your 4 years active duty, they gave you what they call a DD-214. That's separation papers. I had to be in the reserves. I didn't have to go to any meetings, but I had to be in the reserves. And then 4 years later, they sent me my honorable discharge. That's how we did it.
Okay, now when you got out of active duty after 4 years, did you meet your wife Renee then? Your wife to be? Did you
not right away? Not right away. I was like 21 at the time, 21, whatever. And I went down to my parents had moved from Brooklyn down to Miami Beach. So I flew from Los Angeles to Miami Beach, and I enrolled in University of Miami. They wanted me to be a doctor. I really wanted to be a doctor, but, you know, that's what I did. So I went through pre-med, okay, but I never used it. It's not what I wanted. So anyway, I got out of school. I came back up to New York because that's where my roots are, really. And it came one night. It was like, I don't know, during the week, whatever. And I had nothing to do. One of my friends called me and they said, you want to go to a dance or something? I said, nah, I don't think so. They said, come on, they wanted to accompany me. I said, all right. So we went to this dance in Brooklyn in a place called the Menorah Temple. It was on 50th Street and 14th Avenue.
Okay.
In those days, the girls also, when they went to a dance, they didn't go alone. It was embarrassing. They had to go with a friend. Okay?
Okay.
Now my wife went to that dance, but she was engaged at the time. Okay? Wow. She was engaged, and her friend said, and she said to her friends, I'm engaged. Where am I going? She says, please, just accompany me. So she turned her ring around, and she went. And I spotted her at the time. At that time, I had a nice full head of hair. When we wore, in those years, we wore the black mohair suits. It's like silk shark skin, you know?
Okay.
And I seen her, and I was attracted to her. And I guess she was attracted to me too. And I went over to her, and I asked her for a dance. We started to dance. And I told her after about an hour, I said, you know something? I'm going to end up marrying you. Really? I said, swear to God, I said, I'm going to marry you. And she says, you're crazy. I don't even know you. I said, you'll get to know me. Right? She says, I'm engaged. I said, well, give the ring back. I said, you know it's going to be me. So, she gave the ring back. 6 days later, we got engaged. And the following week, we got married. And that was 57 years ago.
You didn't catch her on. You just got married right away.
Well, listen, I was a single guy, and I had plenty of girls. It was no big deal, As a matter of fact, it's no big deal to go to bed even. It's nothing, But, when you get to a point, the way I felt anyway, you get to a point where you want somebody that wants you for you. Because, the sex doesn't last. It can't. I mean, that's the first thing that you think of when you meet somebody is a sexual attraction. But there's got to be something besides that. Otherwise, that's why there's so many divorces. It wears off and then they fly. So you got to, instead of not only love the person, you got to like them. You got to like the person. And that's how it was with us.
Okay, Murray, slow down just a second here. As I understand it, now you correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
You correct me if I'm wrong. Your wife to be at the time,
yes,
not only was engaged to someone else, but she was born in Paris, France.
Right. She came over here.
What was she doing in Brooklyn?
Well, because she came over after the Second World War. She came over in 1947. Here, I'll give you to her, and she can tell you. Hold on. This is Renee.
Sure.
Hi. How are you?
Renee, how are you?
Murray's telling my entire story, so I'm not going to have anything to say.
Well, you know what? Murray's telling your entire story, but you, and only you, can really tell your entire story. Let me set you up. This is Peter Trunk talking. Let me just ask you, you were born in Paris, France, yes or no? Yes.
Yes. Okay. I was born in Paris, France.
You were born in Paris. Now, when you came over to America, if I may be so bold, can I ask you why you came over to America?
All right. Well, I am third generation French. Don't let my Brooklyn accent fool you. Je parle un très bon français. As you can see, I can still speak French. Yeah. Now, my mother originally came from Poland.
Okay.
At that time, the doors in the United States were closed. She could not come into the United States.
Okay.
So, she had a choice. She had Cuba, Paris, and I'm not sure of the other countries. She chose Paris. And she became very, very wealthy in Paris. She had a very, very good life. This was before, a World War II. She had two sisters in America, and during the 1920s, it was very bad in the United States. They were online on the bread lines.
Yes.
So, and they wanted my mother to come back, but my mother said no. She had a wonderful life in Paris. And I don't know, have you been to Paris, France?
I have.
We lived so maybe you might know, well, we lived on Boulevard Sevastopol. That's a very famous street there.
All right.
Avenue. And like I said, then the war broke out. The war broke out, and my mother still had her Polish passport. And she was told by many neighbors, get, rid of the passport, marry somebody French. And she knew the French language. She was there for 25 years. She met my father. In those days, foreigners married Frenchmen so they can lose their passports, their Polish passports. Yeah. And she automatically became a French citizen.
Okay.
She had my brother and I were born in Paris. My brother's 11 years older than me.
All right.
And we were hidden. My father was in the French army. Because my mother had money, she was able to have my brother stay with a maybe Catholic family during the entire war, the whole 5 years. I was a baby, so I stayed with my mother in Normandy. Also, maybe on a farm, a very religious farm. France is very Catholic.
Yes, it is.
It's a Catholic country. Yeah, and they did not know that my mother was Jewish.
Okay.
In fact, they even said to my mother, they said, her name is Leah. Leah, what does a Jewish person look like? Do they really have horns?
Oh,
my mother said, who knows? I don't know. I never met a Jewish person in my life.
Oh, my God.
But at the end of the war, she said, you want to know who's Jewish? I'm Jewish. And they could not believe it. They could not believe it. Anyway, we stayed there till 1947. I came to the United States in 1947. And in those days, we had Jewish organizations that had to, called the Hayas, and they had to sponsor us. And each person, it cost them $10,000. It was $40,000 to get to the United States.
That was a lot of money.
And that was a lot of money then.
That's a lot of money now.
Right.
Right.
And you had to have a job. My brother was 11 years older than me. He was 16. I was 5. My mother had a job. My father had a job. We had to be healthy. In fact, my mother was sick. She had a hernia or something. They had to send her back to be operated. You had to be healthy, not like today where they come in, and the world is really theirs. They get Medicaid and they get this, they get that. No, not in those days. But my mother did very well in the United States. She made her money in real estate, and here I am. Anyway, one night, I decided to go to a dance with a friend, and I met Murray.
This is the good part.
The good part.
Go ahead.
And Murray wore, a slick black shark suit, and I wore my tight black and gold mandarin dress, and we both knew from the start it was a perfect match.
You were engaged at the time, right?
I was seeing somebody, but to be honest with you, it was really for material things. He was a professional man. He had money. My mother loved him. She said, this is it. This is for you. But then when I saw Murray in his black suit and his bluish eyes and his, what did I say? He took my breath away. And I said, no, I'm going to marry for love. And then maybe the money will come later. He had potential.
Wait a minute, Renee. What did your mother say? What the heck did
My mother couldn't believe her eyes. She says, are you kidding? No one thought it would last. I have friends that have been engaged for years and years and are now divorced. And here we met in 1 week, got engaged, got married.
Meant to be.
It was meant to be. And it's 57 years.
It was Bashir.
And what did I say? It's been a dance ever since.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a great story. You know, if I had met you two in person and have spoken with you on the phone and know a little bit about both of you and especially about Murray, that's almost hard to believe, that story. That's almost to the point where, it's almost like a fantasy. But that is really...
Again, I would do it just the same way.
Did you hear? Murray said...
No, I did not. I did not hear what he said.
I said, if I had it to do all over again, I would do it the exact same way.
There you go.
I've been lucky. I have a good girl. And I have a great family, and I've been blessed.
You're a good guy. You're a good guy.
We have 2 wonderful children. I have a son, Adam, and a beautiful girl, Kim, and a great daughter-in-law, and we have a granddaughter. She's 21 years old, Haley Michelle. She's in Ohio. She graduated with very high marks. She's going to be a future writer.
She graduated cum laude.
She graduated
college in 3 years.
She graduated college in 3 years. So we're blessed, you know. All we need is our health. Health is wealth.
That's all you need. That's all you need. And I've met both of you, and you seem to have it.
Yes. Yes, we're lucky.
A lot of energy, and all that stuff. If you don't mind, that was a wonderful, wonderful story, and your rendition was priceless. I wonder if you wouldn't mind putting Murray back on, because I want to ask him how he got affiliated with the Carnegie Deli initially.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for
Au revoir.
Okay, au revoir, right. Exactly.
Do you speak French? Do you speak a little French?
Very, very, very little, although I took it in school for 2 years. I speak it very poorly and I can read it a little bit, but I can't really speak it. But Linda and I, listen, before you get off the line, let me just tell you something. My wife, Linda, who you met at the play.
Right.
My wife, Linda, when we went to Paris, we fell in love with Paris. So much so that I said to Linda, if ever a day comes where the doctor gives me the bad news, where I have 6 months to live or whatever, I said, just bring me over here, sit me down on a chair on the Champs-Élysées with a cigar, and leave me alone. I just want to watch the people walk by, and I will die a happy man. I love it. And my father used to travel the world, all over the world. He went everywhere, you name it. I mean,
wow.
He went to Russia, he went to China, he went everywhere. And every time he would come back, I would pick him up at the airport. I would say, Dad, how was it? He said, it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. It wasn't Paris, though. He always said that. He always said, no matter where he went, he would say it was great, but it wasn't Paris. So I was dying to go to Paris, and when I finally went, we went for 11 days. It was great. It was just absolutely great.
That's really wonderful. Paris is the land of romance.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes. But it's funny because, you know, I went for my citizenship. I was in my 50s, and here I'm saying the Pledge of Allegiance with my Brooklyn accent, and all the foreigners were asking me, where do you come from? The Bronx or Brooklyn? I said, no, Paris. But believe it or not, I had to go through it. I had a green card.
Sure.
See, my parents automatically became a citizen. 5 years you had to be in the United States. You went to night school, took a test, that's it. My brother enlisted in the armed forces, so he automatically became a citizen. And I had a choice to become a French citizen or an American citizen. I chose an American, not knowing really that you can have a dual citizenship. I didn't know at the time. I would have chose that. But, I was married to Murray, and they sent me a card, and they said to me, what do you want to be? Otherwise, we'll have to ship you back to Paris. I said, oh, my God, I have a child here. Paris is not my home anymore. I don't know it. I left it I was 5 years old.
Sure.
So I chose America, and there you go. I'm going to give you Murray.
Okay,
so take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, here I am.
Murray, that was a great story. Now,
truth is more better than fiction,
Yeah, it is. Yep. Now, she brought us to a point where I still don't know how and when you became affiliated with the Carnegie Deli.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my father was in a delicatessen line over 50 years. Okay,
right.
We had a 10-ton refrigerated truck, and he used to go up to the mountains once a week and deliver all the delicatessen and smoked fish. That was his line. Okay. And I used to, when I was a little bit older, I was 10 years old already, I used to help him on the road. He used to work Wednesday and Thursday. He worked 2 days a week his whole life, my father. Right? And he made a very, very good living.
Why Wednesday and Thursday, Murray? Let me ask you, why Wednesday and Thursday?
Wednesday and that was the days he picked. Wednesday and Thursday. I never asked him why, to tell you the truth. But that's how it was. He like I said, during the Second World War, the average man, working man, the average family man with 2 kids was making $35 a week. Yeah. My father was coming home with $700-800 a week every week.
Wow.
Because he had his customers. We went all over. As a matter of fact, I still remember our first stop was Sing Sing Prison. We used to bring the warden there. He always liked our delicatessen. And we used to go all the way to Ossining and Peekskill.
New York, sure. Yeah.
And Croton, and we'd end up in Beacon, New York. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah, I know where that is because I'm a railroad fan, so I know.
We had a couple of stores, customers, Beacon. In those days, you remember, right now they have a bridge now that goes from Beacon to Newburgh, right across the Hudson. Okay. In those days you had a ferry. That's how it was. Back in 1947, we had a tremendous blizzard here in New York. Yep. I don't know if you know about that or you
I've read about it. Yes.
Well, right. The snow laid on the ground for 5 months. Okay, because everything went into a deep freeze. We got to Beacon, New York, and the Hudson River was frozen 10 feet thick with ice.
Wow. And
we're looking what to do. My father was looking, and he started seeing these big semi-trailers going right across the ice to Newburgh. So that's what we did. My father put the chains on the truck, and he drove right across the Hudson, right across the ice to Newburgh.
Must have been nervous.
Wow.
No, I wasn't nervous. I really wasn't.
No.
And we went to Newburgh. He had good customers there. From Newburgh, we went to Poughkeepsie, and then on to Kingston and Catskill, and all the way up to the Rip Van Winkle Bridge to go across the street into Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And he'd do that in 2 days. We'd come home. My job was to wash the truck out and everything. And on Friday and Saturday and Sunday was the Polo Grounds, the Giants. Me, my father, Herbie, and Ronnie. We all went. That was it. Monday was Silver's Turkish Baths in Coney Island. That's how it was. That's how it was. And Tuesday, my father would go load up the truck, go shopping and load up and start the whole thing over again. He was on the route there for 52 years. So that's
unbelievable.
That was the beginnings of my thing with delicatessen and learning about it and all. So I was brought up with the delicatessen line.
Yeah.
Now,
Sure.
when I came back here and we got married, I had to make a living, I had to make a living. And in New York, you just can't work in a delicatessen. I don't know how it is now, but in those days, you had to be in a delicatessen union. Otherwise, you couldn't work in New York. That took in New York and Brooklyn and Long Island and everything, right? So I got into the union, I joined the union, and they put me in a place called Grabstein's, which was the best delicatessen in Brooklyn. It was on Rockaway Parkway and Avenue M. It was a great deli.
What was the name of it again?
Grabstein's.
Grabstein's. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
The average delicatessen in those days was doing like $3,000 a week. Grabstein's was doing $15,000 a week. Okay?
Wow, that's a lot of money in those days.
Right. The stuff was superb. It doesn't even exist anymore. Delicatessen is not what it was from the 40s. That doesn't exist anymore. Everything is different. The salamis are different. The quality of meat is different. In those days they made a great salami, and the salami was made with bull meat. But they don't use it anymore because it's too expensive. It's not the same. It's just not the same. In those days, hot dogs, you didn't have skinless hot dogs in those days. Everything was natural casing, and the hot dogs were great. You had about 20 different companies in New York and Brooklyn, and we used to get our stuff from an outfit called High Grade. Now they're not in business anymore. But we had our store was a kosher style store because it couldn't be considered glatt kosher because we were open on Saturdays. Glatt kosher is when you close on Saturday, okay? In any event, High Grade had a kosher factory called Hard Carmel. That was their kosher section. And this
Hold it now. Hold it, Murray. Hold it. Back up just a little bit for this guy. What's black kosher mean again?
Glatt kosher. Like I worked in a place called Lou G. Siegel's in New York.
Okay.
That was glatt kosher. We used to shut the ovens off by 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and we'd open up on Sunday. It was strictly kosher. Strictly kosher. That's what they call glatt kosher. But in New York, when you have a delicatessen, you got to have everything. You got to carry like in New York, in Carnegie, I had 440 items on the menu. I had everything.
Wow.
So I worked in the gas machines, and I got to a point where they couldn't teach me anymore. I used to go around to different stores because every store had their different ways of doing catering, and I wanted to learn as much as I could. When I got to a point where they couldn't teach me anymore, I left the job. But I'd leave a job and I'd be at another job the same day. I never lost a day's pay. And then I went into the Carnegie as a night counterman. A lot of the guys seen me, they got scared because they seen a young guy come in. They were afraid of their jobs. As a matter of fact, they used to do their catering. The guy would take the catering stuff and go in the refrigerator with a coat on and do his catering so he wouldn't see. He didn't want me to watch what he was doing. But I didn't care because I had my own methods, and I worked my way up. I was the night the night coreman, and then I came in during the day. I became the head counterman and the head caterer and a night manager and day manager and general manager. This is what.
Okay, now at this time, when you first got to the Carnegie, when you first started there as a night counterman, were you married to Renee?
Yeah, sure.
You were married already.
And you lived where, in Brooklyn?
I lived in Brooklyn. Renee's mother had an 8-family house.
Okay.
And we lived on Cortellier Road in Brooklyn.
Right.
And this is where we lived. We lived there for 5 years. And then I decided, the neighborhood was starting to change and everything, and I wanted my own house. I wanted my own home. First, I looked in Long Island, and I said, I can't fight this traffic. Just forget about it. I'm going to be going into New York 6 to 7 days a week, but it's traffic. Forget about it. So we looked out in Jersey. I came back. I came home from work one day, and they said to me, we're going to go look at a house in East Brunswick. I never even heard of East Brunswick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, you mean New Brunswick, right? She says, no, East Brunswick. So came out here, and there was 2 houses left. We're on Gunpowder here. And I looked at the house, and I bought the house in 20 minutes. I mean, this is what I want. And at that time, it was much cheaper. It was $35,000 for the house.
Sure. What year was that?
That was 1972.
Right. Okay.
And like I said, I put a down payment down at $15,000, and I had a $20,000 mortgage over 30 years.
Wow.
But, you know, at that time, the rates dropped for a little bit, like a 3-month drop. It went down to 7.25% because it was much higher at the time. And I quoted at that time at 7.25%. I still remember my payments were $262 a month. That was my mortgage. And later on, things start to get real good, and the rates started going through the roof. And at one point, it got up to like the rates were like almost 20%.
Wow.
And the bank that I was doing, it was a bank called First Charter. It was on Cranberry Road. Right now, it's PNC Bank. You probably know
that's
what
my
that
bank.
is.
That's my bank.
Right, that's my bank too. But it used to be First, in 72, that was First Charter. So
That's
they
my
called
bank.
me one day, and I called them, actually. They didn't call me, I called them. And I said, you know something, I have a 30-year mortgage, and at that time, it was like 12 years at the time. And I said, you know, I'd like to pay off the rest of my mortgage, you know.
Sure.
They says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Trachtenberg, you don't have an open mortgage, so you can't pay it off." I said, okay, that's it. So, and the rates started, like I said, going through the roof, and they called me. And they said, Mr. Trachtenberg, if you want to go for that deal, we'll pay off your thing. He says, we can go for it. I says, yeah. I says, why, you're choking with the 20%? You're choking with my 7.25%. I said, you think I'm an idiot? I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a deal. Right now I owe you $17,000.
Right.
And I'll give you 12 cash, we'll call it a day. He says, no, we can't do that. I said, lose my number. Don't call me no more. I'll pay my $262. About a week and a half later, I got another call. Mr. Trachtenberg, if you want to do that, we can go for it. When can you come here? I says, well, it's 1:45 right now. I'll be there at 1 o'clock. So I gave him the 12 cash, and we called it a day. And no more mortgage.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, it's always good to keep a small amount. I said, let me ask you something. I just saved myself $5,000. If I put that in an interest-bearing account for 17 years, how much money am I going to get from it?
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
So this is what it was. I paid off the 30-year mortgage in 12 years, and that was it. And,
so now you still go to PNC Bank.
Oh, yeah. That's my bank.
So do I. You know Marilyn? Marilyn, the girl behind the...
Of course I know Marilyn. She knows me very well.
A good friend of mine. Marilyn, listen.
She always asks me for recipes. She asks me and Renee for recipes. She knows me. Just mention my name. She'll say, oh, yeah, I know Murray and Renee.
That's what I want you to do. I want you to go in there the next time and say, do you know Peter and Linda Trunk? And she'll tell you all about us.
All right, okay. Yeah, she's been there a long time.
That's a small world, boy.
Yeah, right. It's a small world.
Small world. Now, when you lived in East Brunswick initially, when you first bought the house, how did you get to work at the Carnegie Deli? How did you?
I drove.
Did you?
Oh, you mean at first? And I took the bus. I used to get at the Ramada Inn on Route 18. At that time, there was a Ramada Inn there, and I used to take it was like $9.90 for the whole week, both ways. That's what it was.
Wow.
20 trips was $9.90.
Yeah,
and I used to get into the Port Authority. I used to take the first bus in the morning. It was like 5:06 in the morning, and by 10 minutes to 6, I was in the Port Authority already. And then from there, I'd walk over to the Carnegie.
That's
great. Carnegie was on 55th and 7th.
Yes.
55th and 8th, rather. And that's
right. Yeah.
That's how it was. And then later on, when my job got very big, I started going in by by car. I had a company car. They took care of that. They took care of the parking. I had an apartment in the city. They took care of that for that. Me too. And that's because I didn't punch a clock as general manager. You know, I had to be there when I had to be there. That's it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd have a week where I work 45 or 50 hours. Sometimes I work 90 hours, or sometimes I wouldn't even come home. Depends on what commitments I had. So, but I liked what I was doing. Yeah, like one time I went in to the Carnegie. It was like maybe 5:15 in the morning, and Milton is the owner there. He said, "Murray, what are you doing here so early?" I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He says, I own the place. I want to be here. I said, "Well, I want to be here too." So, you know, I was an employee, but I didn't feel like an employee. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I did the hiring, I did the firing, I did the running inventories every day. That's what it was. That's where you make your money on the buying, you know. And I used to have a food cost of 29.5%, and that's very good. So, you know, this is what it was.
Explain that. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
It means
29.5% of what?
It means you're making a lot. It means you're making a lot of money. Okay, my boss.
Of course it does, but I mean, explain it to me. Explain what that means exactly.
Well, if you have a food cost of 35%, you're not doing the right job. Okay, you're paying too much for your merchandise. You shouldn't be paying more. If you can get it down to 29.5%, you're doing very good because you're getting top quality merchandise and you're paying a very good price for it. You're not paying too much money, and you're getting 5 times back of what you're making.
So when you feel volume, you can do that, right?
Sure. Well, we used to average week first. We used to do about 350,000 a week in business. Okay, we're doing like 15 million. It's almost a year business. My boss, Milton, you know what he used to take home for a paycheck every week? 35,000 a week.
Really?
Okay? Yeah, 35 grand a week. I had 153 people working there too, because she had different shifts, and they were all union.
Yeah.
You know, the waiters, I had 60 waiters, and you know, it was a very efficient place because you'd walk in and within 6 minutes you're sitting down and you're eating already. That's how it was. You know,
efficiency.
Because you had to be top waiters there. You couldn't just, and they didn't have what they call dupes. When I say dupes, that's like when a waiter writes out on an order pad and he puts it up there for the guy to look at it. We didn't have that. They used to holler in the order, give me a CB, give me a pistol, give me this. It was all by your head. And now when I worked the machines at the time, I had a system. Say I had waiters coming over to me and they would say to me, "All right, I need 6 CBs, so give me 10 pistols." Pistols, we used to call pastrami pistols, okay? And I would put down a slice of bread for each sandwich that I had to make in certain areas. If I had 10 slices of bread in one area and 6 slices in another area, I knew I would need 10 corned beefs or 6 pastrami's or whatever. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's how I kept it. How I kept it in my mind, so I never missed an order. That's how it was. I'd say, give me a CB. I'd throw down a slice of bread. I knew I have to make a corned beef sandwich, no matter how many it was, for 10, 15, 20, whatever. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. That's how it was. You need a system.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
It really is.
Before we catch our breath and wind it down and say goodnight, I have to go back. I would like to go back, if you don't mind, Murray, and tell me a little bit about when you told me Friday, Saturday, I think you said Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was the Polo Grounds.
Oh yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well,
how'd you get there? How'd you get your tickets? Where did you sit?
We always sat in the bleachers because that's where it was fun. If you remember the Polo Grounds, the configuration of the Polo Grounds, you know where the bleachers were in dead center field.
Sure.
Right. It was both sides, and in the middle they had the clubhouse, and had the big green dress. So that's where we sat because that's where all the arguments were. That's where all the fights were. That's where all the Dodger fans, the Giant fans, and the Yankee fans used to sit.
Yeah.
The Yankee fans would start the trouble, and they'd sit back and watch the Dodgers and Giants go at it.
Right.
That's how it was. And we take along for a lot of food because my father was the delicatessen line. We take along sandwiches and everything. And in those days, you always had double headers, especially on the 4th of July. 4th of July was always a double header with the Dodgers and Giants. And the Dodgers and Giant rivalry was so heated, even more than the Yankees and the Red Sox. It was unbelievable what went on.
Yeah.
It was a different world. Everybody was into baseball in those days.
Yes,
everybody. Right. As you know, I grew up with guys around. Joe Torre lived the next block from me, and Cal Abrams lived around there. They all what it was. We loved it. We loved it. I have pictures in my room here right now where I'm sitting with you. I got a picture. It's like maybe about 5 feet by 5 feet of the Ebbets Field, Yankee Stadium, and the Polo Grounds.
Yeah.
All of it. With the players on the field watching. And then I got a picture in front of me of the old Giant Stadium where I used to sit on the 40-yard line. I sat right behind Phil Simms' wife on row 24. Nixon sat 4 rows behind me. Oh, that's what it was. I remember they came into the Carnegie one day. George Young came in, who really got the Giants going when he was a great field manager. And he came in with Phil Simms, and Phil Simms came in. He brought me a football. It was in white, and he autographed it. He says, "Murray, you're one of the greatest Giant fans I ever met." And George Young gave me a Giant helmet phone. And they quote.
No kidding. How nice. That's great.
Very nice.
That's good. Yeah.
Other guys came in. Even the movie guys came in sometimes. Like Dana Andrews. Remember Dana Andrews?
Sure, absolutely, Dana Andrews. Absolutely.
Did you know that he had 2 brothers that were in show business?
I don't. No, I didn't know.
No.
That.
You know who they were?
Who were they?
Harry Reisner, Steve Forrest, and Dana Andrews, all brothers.
Really?
Yeah.
You like that? I didn't know that.
Right?
No idea.
Now you know it. That's how it was.
That's funny.
Yep. And I got a big picture here, 4x4 of my company with the Marines here. It was all corpsmen. It was about 75 of us, all corpsmen. I have it all over here. I got a lot of pictures all over the place, all sports stuff.
A lot of memories.
I got a big picture here, a 3x3 of Bobby Thompson hitting the home run, and you got the button, and you press the button, and you hear Russ Hodges doing the whole thing.
Yeah, doing the whole thing. He said the same thing over and over and over.
Right. And I also have the whole game, the entire October the 3rd, 1951. The whole thing recorded. I got it from Monty Irvin.
Right.
That was the Chesterfield 3-1 club at the time.
Yeah.
I
have a lot of pictures.
It was a wonderful time to grow up in the 40s and 50s.
Sure it was.
And it was safe too. I started going out with girls. I'd come home 2-3 in the morning, walk in the street. Nobody bothers you. It was safe. It was safe.
Right.
We'd go to Nathan's and the hot dogs. The hot dog was 5 cents and the drink was free. That's how it was. And then from there we go to Steeplechase. It was. I was born actually in Coney Island. I moved away from that. But yeah, I was born actually. Coney Island goes up to West 37th Street. That's the end. And that's Seagate over there. I don't know if you know what Seagate is.
No,
it's a gated community.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was born on 36th Street. Okay. Coney Island, the main drag is Surf Avenue. That's where Coney Island is. So between the Surf Avenue, and then 1 block over is Mermaid Avenue. In between those 2 streets, there was trolleys running there. They used to call it Railroad Avenue. And that's just where I was born, right there on the tracks. That's how it was. That's how it was. And like I said, my memories are very vivid. You don't forget.
Your memories are terrific. My God.
Yeah, your memories are great.
I talk with my brother all the time. My brother lives down in Florida, and we converse every week. And we're both into the same kind of stuff. Okay. except I'm a little bit more astute with it than him. That's it. Ronnie was a good guy too. He was also a Navy guy and played for the Jersey City Giants. He was back up to West Western. He's a good catcher. Oh yeah, he was a good hitter. Good ball player. Ronnie.
What's his first name?
Ronnie.
Yeah.
Like my name.
Ronnie Trachtenberg.
Like
Right.
Yep.
And then he became a professional wrestler. He was a wrestler for over 30 years. He used to travel around with Anthony the Rocker and Gene Stanley and Gino Garibaldi and all those guys. Bruno Sammartino.
Bruno Sammartino just died yesterday.
He just died yesterday, yes. Yeah,
82 years old.
Yeah.
Anthony the Rocker was my favorite. It was my favorite though because he.
Yeah, Tony Rocker, boy, he wrestled barefooted.
Yeah,
Tony
he wrestled barefoot. I love that. I love that he wrestled barefoot.
Right, he had his two pet things. Tony liked two things that he loved very much: his cigars and his women. That's what he. He was a nice guy. He was a nice guy.
Great. Yeah.
And we used to travel around. What's that?
Did he used to come into the deli?
No, I never seen him in the deli at the time.
Okay.
Never seen him in the deli. That's all.
Oh.
But that's about it. Anything else?
That's about it. Listen, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Murray, and I want to extend our heartfelt thank you to Renee for putting up with us.
She's a great kid.
Well, you know what? I want you when you get off the line here, I want you to give her a nice hug and a kiss for me because we really appreciate her taking her time
absolutely
and sharing her memories.
Right, and I'm going to go by Marilyn. I'm going to mention you.
All right.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Okay.
Beautiful.
And you know something?
Tell Marilyn. I'm going to mention you too.
Yeah, I remember you asking me one time, not this time, but you said, "Where do I go for a delicatessen?"
Yes.
And I remember do you remember what I told you?
But
I want good deli. I make it myself in my house.
Make it yourself, right?
Right, because they don't know what these people today. They don't know what they're doing. And when I make a delicatessen party, everybody shows up. They don't want to miss it out.
I'm sure.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I got a lot of friends over in Stonebridge. There's 16 of us. We play pinochle.
The next time you have one of those parties,
you're in. Don't worry.
My phone number.
You're in.
Don't lose my phone number. I'll bring a 6-pack of celery soda, Dr. Brown.
Not delicatessen the way it used to be 50 years ago. Okay?
Yeah.
That's how it is. It's a real art. You know, you gotta, you're putting food in somebody's mouth. You gotta be very, very careful.
Right.
And I wouldn't serve anything that I wouldn't eat myself. That's it.
There you go.
And that's how I did it with my guys. I told them.
Yeah.
I said, if you wouldn't eat it, then don't serve it. Period.
Right.
That's right. Okay. So.
All right.
It was great talking to you guys.
Thank you very much.
It's been great.
I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank my partner, Ronnie Rabinovitz. Thank you, Ronnie, for being with us. And all I can say is we had a fun time. We'll do it again soon. And gentlemen, thank you and good night. Good night.
Okay. Good night. Take care. Stay well.